Okay, it's gonna do time to do what it's gonna do. What am I even saying right now? I am gonna do some more dog fooding of the Actor Critic MCP to help me clean up some stuff. I need to make a fix for the summarization agent, which I already had to do, and that like looks okay, but I want to clean some stuff up, so I'm gonna have it help me. Okay, so we're going to use the Actor Critic. We're going to say, hey, use the Actor Critic tool to plan and implement the following. Too much of the summarization logic, including the call to the agent itself, lives inside the knowledge graph at present. So I want you to refactor the knowledge graph so that the summarization related logic lives over in the summarize agent instead. And the knowledge graph should be passed as a constructor, passed to the constructor of the summarize agent as a dep. Let's go ahead and let it go nuts. So far it is going well. The critic is behaving like it should, telling it, hey, you are missing artifacts. You need to include those as part of your plan. You need to include specific implementation details as part of this. And so essentially keeping the actor coding agent in line here. Okay, so the critic seems to be happy now, says your code changes look well structured and consistent with the system's design. Very nice. Yep, critic giving it more feedback here saying, okay, you need to be specific about what changes you're going to apply. You can't just say, hey, you're going to apply changes. You need to include that as part of your thought so that I can give you feedback. This is great, because otherwise I would have to be doing this, but it would end up being way too many steps late when it's all said and done. And it's like, oh, you've created too much code. So now the critic does that for me, which is nice. So while it's thinking, I'm going to bounce around, I'm simultaneously setting up vtest here so I can run unit tests or have it create unit tests. Sit back and just watch. Okay, nice. It has applied lots of specific details, and now the critic has approved. Sweet. What is this bull crap? Look at this. Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, so I'm giving it some direct feedback now because it is creating this summarization agent in a fashion that doesn't align with the project's patterns that are already established. So hopefully it can put that into its knowledge graph, and we'll have that for like a long-term type of history. But this is also the type of thing I'm hoping to try to solve. Like the better it can get with this this knowledge graph, and then having the peripheral agents, the better it'll be at being able to determine what are the established patterns in the project, and if there's any other files that already exist, it'll be able to use the critic or other agents to help guide it, right? So we can we can have an agent that will be able to quickly go like, hey, it's going to be creating this or doing this. Let's go ahead and see, does this conflict with any of the established patterns, any things that's already been created in the past that's already created, and then give it feedback if that's so. Okay, so this is an interesting case. How can I make it? I need it to be a little more smarter. So, I created a path here that's a bit redundant. So, it disrupted the existing flow here, but it could have done this a little more intelligently. So essentially, it passes the agent. It passes the summarization agent to the knowledge graph, probably where in the index, right? Summarization agent, yep, pass it, yeah, sets, and then in the Actor Critic engine, it calls the knowledge graph's check and trigger summarization. And all this does is under the hood call check and trigger summarization of the agent. It's like, well, why didn't you just, instead of that, why didn't you just do that? Right? So play it simple. I'm going to give it that feedback so that hopefully it will add this to the knowledge graph, and maybe we can use that later as a learning tool for it. Okay, so the feedback given it, as said, and again, I wanted to use the tool so we make an entry in the knowledge graph, so hopefully we can make some learning edge going forward. So knowledge graph doesn't actually need the summarization agent. You've created redundancy and overcomplicated this, which is bad. So I'm trying to give it reinforcement, right? This is negative valence, right? Negative reinforcement. And then the Actor Critic engine, you could just call, and tell it just call the summarization agent directly instead of using the knowledge graph to do it. And then at the end, I say, I expect you to be a much better programmer than this going forward. Some more reinforcement. And let's see how that works. Okay, so far it has done what it should. Replace this and calling the summarization agent directly, and has removed that from the knowledge graph, which is nice, keeping the knowledge graph nice and clean, as it should be. Removing setting that in the index file, which again is good and correct. I need to get rid of that to do. So I've successfully done all that and made an entry. Cool. Approve. Yep. Awesome. So that looks pretty good. Go ahead and add all that in. So now I'm going to have it create or unit tests for these summaries. Actually, no, for the knowledge graph. Here, file, new knowledge graph test. Yes. Actually, let me see if the test is actually running fine yet. We'll face this page gigahertz. Is that function? Okay, cool. That is working fine, failing fine, like it should be. I'm just getting rid of that stupid. Okay, that else would be a weird one, but aim for the judo chop, where we are getting 80% confidence in our code with 20% effort, if that makes sense. Let's see what happens. So I like putting weird little prompts in there to see what happens. Get it to think creatively. Well, maybe I should have known for unit tests. They don't need to be creative. They just need to test the contracts, give us some confidence. All right, I'm going to get back to this at a later time. Okay, to wrap this up, it created the unit test for the knowledge graph. I'll go ahead and run those. You'll see they all passed. And then also, you'll see there's actually quite a few tests, but I went through and I reviewed it all, and it seemed to be like, this is, as far as unit tests go, like this is good enough for me. And then in the right-hand side here, I'm going to scroll down. This is all the back and forth with it creating the tests. And then it gives a little readout here. And then at the bottom, I said, okay, I want you to go ahead and summarize this branch and summarize what's been done so far. So it did a list branch. It also summarized the branch. It created an entry in the knowledge graph here. And then this is largely that summary formatted. And overall, like, it did a pretty good job. I'm pretty happy with what it has been able to do. And then, I checked all of that in and I added it into a pull request on the repo. And then I took a moment and I looked at the code and I said, you know what? I actually want to improve some of the architecture here. But I went ahead and it was just really quick, like little refactors. So I did something outside of the context of the actor critic, knowledge graph and conversation here. And so what I did was I output the diff of what I did into a diff file. So let me see if I can find that. Here it is. So here's a diff file. I give it to the agent here, and I said, hey, here are the refactor changes I've made. I want you to use the Actor Critic tool so you can add another entry to the knowledge graph. And you can do that by submitting a new thought via the Actor Think tool. And I want you to have it contain all the artifacts, including all the file changes and appropriate tags. So this way, well, if it's in there, we can use that to reference later. So it has context as to what's been done, what's going on. I don't know if you've done this before, but this happened to me a lot where the agent will make changes and then I will go make changes, maybe to the same file or peripheral file. And it does not pick up my changes. It has no idea. I also just change stuff and it doesn't think to look before it operates on that. So it ends up either wiping out what I did or retracing steps, which is, frustrating and redundant. So this is kind of an attempt to help smooth that whole workflow over. Oh yeah, okay. So, and also here's the output. Here are all the artifacts, which it got, like it picked up everything from that diff. It listed them all in the artifacts property and it added it to the knowledge graph, and the critic approved that. So let me see if I can actually open up the JSON file. And it's getting massive now. And find that last entry. Here it is. Yeah, so this is great. Again, I'm really happy with what it's doing so far, and I'm going to go ahead and push this and wrap up that PR now.